Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I want to cover my Barbarian Blademaster build for Module 29. This is accompanied by a build document which goes over everything you need to set it up. But I will cover it in this video step by step as well, providing some additional information, particularly on how to play. As you can see, this build will get you maxed out at 90% in all of those damage stats. On top of that, we will be, because it's Module 29, focusing a little bit on fire themed gear like these boots and this shirt, giving you some extra damage within those areas. Outside of that, you may want to switch out some things. Ultimately, the purpose of this build is to give you a solid baseline, which is very versatile and it's completely independent of a team. You don't need to have like group bonuses in order to max out your damage stats, which is great. And ultimately, this build then allows you to switch some things around pretty easily to adapt to groups, and you can then optimize based on these bonuses to improve your damage further. You can check that section and all covered in this video as well. So again, you can check out this document just linked in the video description below, and we will jump into everything. First of all, we will start with our power setups, and first, multi-target. You need to make sure you're using the right powers and in the right order in order to first maximize your damage. From there, you'll then move to focusing on optimizing your build. So for multi-target, I like to go with this setup. There are a few different variations you can try as a barbarian. You can potentially use, say, roar instead of hidden daggers, and then have like rage a bit quicker and have a stun effect. You can use mightier leap with mighty leap instead of, say, not so fast, giving you a bit more burst damage with this feat particularly, allowing you to easier one-shot enemies. But overall, this setup is very good in pretty much all content, particularly when enemies have a bit more hit points and you're not, say, one-shotting them, which we nearly are in this zone. You'll go up to like your group of enemies, use your hidden daggers, and then not so fast, and depending if you crit or not, everything might be dead. But the idea is to basically use hidden daggers and not so fast, enter rage, hidden daggers, and then you can use your axe storm, and everything should be dead at that point, regardless of what area you're in. And if you're fighting more tanky enemies, well, then you are in rage and using your relentless slash. So again, like hidden daggers, not so fast, and then you should be able to enter rage, and you can use hidden daggers, axe storm, and then relentless slashes. These guys just die so quickly on this kind of setup with this kind of item level in the newest zone. So yeah, you should have absolutely no problem using that to get through your questing super easily. But it's great that, yeah, basically one cast of hidden daggers and then not so fast allows you to immediately go into rage, giving you that big damage boost then for your next hidden daggers and axe storm. If we go here with a bit more tanky enemies, you can see what I mean, where you use your attacks. You're basically weaving your hidden daggers in between those encounter powers in order to give yourself that buff, and then entering rage pretty much as soon as you can, using hidden daggers again. Just don't use hidden daggers like back to back, because that just won't work. You can read the tooltip for yourself as well. It won't trigger its own effect. And see, everything's said like super easily using that. But again, keep in mind there are situations where roar can be useful, situations where mightier leap with the mighty leap encounter power can be more useful. You can mess around with that yourself and see. And in terms of your daily powers, there's Adamantine Strike for just some instant output of damage. It's a big cone attack in front of you. And then Avalanche of Steel, which allows you to, yeah, basically go up in the air like this. You have some great survivability while you're in this. Like any attacks against you will basically be like blocked up to a certain threshold. I believe it's like 3 million. And you basically then take no damage, and you can deal that damage when you land back down, also causing the area on the ground to deal damage over time to enemies. It just requires a bit of setup, and so Adamantine Strike can be better if you need that like damage right then and there. But from here, we're going to move to our single target setup where our rotation becomes a lot more important. And I do highly recommend having a separate loadout because you will want to change your feats. You will switch over to using this and these powers. That is what I found works the most reliably. You will want to learn to animation cancel Relentless Slash. Basically, when you are casting it like this, you can hold down your at will attack, and if you just hold like two opposite movement keys, so like A and D or W and S, and then like spam your shift ability, which is your sprint, you will then animation cancel that attack, allowing you to get a lot more hits off per second, and in particular triggering brutal critical very quickly, building up your rage nice and fast. You can see that just here, and on PC you can use a keybind which can help it a little bit better. The devs will remove it if they feel they should, and you can copy that and simply paste it in your chat. This will be for your right mouse button. You can change the coding based on that here in the keybind section. So once you have your rage built up, you're going to enter rage and you're going to use your rotation. And outside of an artifact call, it's not such a big deal. You're just going into rage, casting your counter powers, and then using your brash strike. You ideally want to use punishing charge before your other encounter powers, just so that you get the trample of the fallen buff due to punishing being a control ability. However, when you get to an artifact call, that is where you want to like optimize your rotation in order to make the most of the 10 seconds of an artifact call. An artifact call is very simply when you cast your artifact and everybody else casts their artifact ideally as well. And supports will use mounts too, increasing the damage against the target up to like 2, 3, even 4 times the amount you would normally deal, which is just massive, which means, again, you only have about 10 seconds of that. So you need to optimize exactly what powers you're using in what order. And it ends up being this, what I found works best. It depends on how many tacticians you have. If you're not aware, tacticians is a mount insignia bonus right here, which allows you to cut the cooldowns of your encounters whenever you use a daily power. So you use the daily power during the middle there, allowing you to basically get 2 sets of encounter powers out versus like only one without any tacticians. And it massively increases your burst damage for that artifact call, where again you're dealing like nearly 4 times your normal amount of damage. So it is absolutely crucial to optimize that and just practice the rotation. Again, depending on how many tacticians you have, use the powers in that exact order. You can see a demonstration of that just here using those abilities. This is the daily power, then the mount power, then your bloodletter, punishing, and frenzy, and that's all done within the 10 seconds in that exact order here. But that is ultimately how to play Barbarian with what powers to use. And from here we go to what gear you want to be using in order to actually get all of these stats maxed out. Again, this setup is for like solo damage. You're not relying on a team to give you buffs, and it's ultimately to serve as a solid baseline which you can work towards, and you can optimize depending on what group you're playing with. If they use these certain bonuses here, then absolutely switch some things around and increase your damage a bit further. So starting out with the gear we're using, you can see all of what we have there. Just be aware there's alternatives you can use that give like the same effect. As per my document, you can see exactly what locations all of those gear pieces are coming from. It's up to date with module 29. Yeah, you might not be at the level to actually obtain all this, but there are alternative pieces you can use that would give similar effects. Like if you're starting out, this enchanted Bragon one can be very useful, or even the mighty chorus, etc, etc, across all of the different gear pieces here. Plenty of stepping stone gear you can use, and I will make a damage dealer progression video, and you can look forward to that if you want something which will guide you step by step of what to go for when building up. But ultimately you are trying to just get gear that is going to give you either damage bonuses or these 5 stats, in order to get them maxed out. When you are in multi-target fights, you need to switch these arms over to the multi-target variants, which are the depth forge ones. Also, your headpiece is a bit pointless in multi-target as you won't be in the fight that long, and so you can switch it over to like this Dark Maidens one, giving you action points on a kill, and then switch Minsk over to like the Golden Cat to make up for that missing combat advantage. From there, we go to the modifications. So you're going to have armor kits and jewels, and we just have a crit severity, a power, an accuracy, and another accuracy. And then in the neck, rings, and the waist, it's all just combat advantage, and that gives you some nice rating boosts. You can see those there too. Moving then to enchantments, you can see what we have here. You want to go with like 2 jades, a garnet, and an amethyst in order to get the ratings that are ideal for this setup. And then defense, it really doesn't matter, guys. You can offload whatever spare enchantments you have there. Sometimes you want to switch some enchantments here that are in offense, and so it can be useful to have ones that you would need to switch around in the defense. It's not a big deal to have like the best here, but it would be, say, garnets. You want to have a garnet in utility, a rage of flames, or some other damage bonus one depending on what enemies you're facing, a devil's precision, a lightning flash, a recharge speed. However, in multi-target you can very well switch to a movement speed to get to the enemies quicker, and then you can see the artifacts. Be aware your primary artifact will depend on the team if you're running endgame for artifact calls. Here is a list with them like ranked, the top ones you want to have in the group, and everybody needs to use a separate one in order for them to stack up. So this is kind of a placeholder but fits best with our stats for now, and these other ones are secondary, just giving you stats. As per the document, you can see exactly where those are coming from, but don't be afraid to use alternative ones. You're mainly using them for the item level. Now we go to our boons. So when you do your campaigns, you're getting points and you'll populate this area. Make sure you get all these offensive stat ones, just this first 2 columns here. Get the movement speed. If you're running the new dungeon, including your demon web pits, make sure you got demonic mastery. Get your forte, recharge speed, and action point gain. Get your bloodlust, your life lessons, and from there make sure you're getting your blessed advantage, and blessed resilience is very good too. Lingering medicine is also great, and then from there just a bunch of defense ones. You can get the other damage and damage resistance against other enemy types depending on what content you're playing, etc. In terms of the guild stronghold, we go with an accuracy one here, have a defense here, and a revive sickness here if you're running tougher content. Otherwise, some mount speed or movement speed. Then we go to our companions. I personally use the Pseudo Dragon for my striker companion as single target, but it's mainly because it's cute and I have it as legendary account wide. As per my companion document, you can see all of the different companions ranked here, and there's plenty of different ones you can use for some good single target damage. Multi-target ones, I'm in the process of like retesting most of them, but you can see general list here. Xuna will be ranked higher there. Shadark Witch will actually go down. I removed the numbers because I need to still show you my test results for those. And ultimately, single target ones are more beneficial because boss fights matter the most, and otherwise there's plenty of party buffing companions you can use just to support the team, and these ones can be ideal in like optimized groups these days, usually better than say going for the maximum amount of damage, and there are some here that can do very good damage as well, particularly in single target. As for the companion equipment, that's just from the new campaign, Mountain of Flame. Then we have the Neverwinter Knight, the Book Imp. There are alternatives to that. You can see just here, like the Dark Dealer, Fey Panther, Redeemed Fallen, Wolfgar. Then we have Minsk in our defense slot, the Bitiri for those boss fights. And when you're in multi-target, it can be very good to easily switch to just the Spine Devil for that multi-target damage effect, but do prioritize the Bitiri for the boss fights. And then we have like the Alchemist here. These give us the stats we need, which will contribute to getting all those 90%. Just be aware that in group optimization, it can be highly recommended to have, say, the tamed Velociraptor. It can give a massive power boost. It's a companion you can get pretty cheap as well, just through, say, the Reaper's Challenge at legendary account wide. And this would give you this power boost and giving it based on your teammates as well, up to like over 18%. Not something I would miss out on if you can get a group for it. Be aware, it can be very useful to switch Minsk to like the Golden Cat when in multi-target fights, due to not actually getting that combat advantage from this helmet properly when the fights can be so short. From there, we move to our mounts. In our current tab, we use Bigby's Hand for a single target mount power, but there are quite a few alternatives you can use here that I do recommend. They are just like magical, so you will miss a little bit of damage, but can be a lot cheaper than, say, going for Bigby's Hand. You can see the difference between your magical and physical damage boost here. For multi-target, you do want to switch to something like the Space Guppy mount with Schools in Session, or even, say, the Pegasus with its inspiration. Those two are like the best right now, and you can probably get a legendary Pegasus for fairly cheap these days, especially with the summer festival. Then we just have Dominant Force here, but you may very well want to have at hand a Ferocity just to give you that bonus, but it's pretty minuscule, and as our solo build we need the Dominant Force for the ratings. In our stable, you can see what we have here. It is a combination of brutality insignias, some aggression, and some skill. You can see exactly the amount of the different ones here, but it is the bonuses that is the most important. 2 Tactician's Precision, an Enchanter's Hex, a Warlord's Motivation, and an Artificer's Enticement. I would go with a second Warlords if you don't have Artificers or find you don't need it. As for the mount collars, make sure to go with these ones here. Again, you can have critical severity instead of the recharge speed there if you feel you need it. But to optimize, I found the recharge speed can be the best. From there, we go to our consumables. So what we're using on this build is Squash Soup, Flask of Potencies, Ratatouille, and Sunlord's Gift Elixir. In terms of our belt item, we use a Stone of Health. Ideally, you have, say, the Owlbear figurine here or the Dragonfire, and then, say, the Empowered Forger's box. Currently only have it on green, but it even works to get us 90%. You can, if you don't need the power, use a Bell of Empowerment to increase your companion's damage by 30% for 30 seconds every 2 minutes. And before I forget, race and ability scores, we are just using the Wood Elf. That gives us the crit strike here, and it is mainly also a personal thing. I prefer my characters to look more human, so Wood Elf fits with that and gives us a boost to these damage stats. We need one of these 5. But the ability scores, you focus on just strength and charisma all the way. So with that, you end up with a very solid damage build with all your 90%. You should now know what abilities to use and how in order to do some very solid damage. But if you're running into groups, particularly in endgame, you may want to switch some things around in order to min-max, to optimize with what benefits they can provide you. That is where we have this group optimization section. You can see the different bonuses and what exact benefits they'll give you. And so to adapt to making the most of them, you can see what you can switch. So an Amethyst enchantment over to Jade if you want to fit in pack tactics. If you want to get Runic Aura and Mystic Aura, you can switch Dominant Force over to Ferocity. Or you can switch your Forger's box over to like a Bell of Empowerment. Then if you have the Portobello, Flapjack, Tutor companions in your team, you can switch your Acute Senses, that giving you combat advantage, over to something else to improve your team, which is like Armor Break, Vulnerability, Dulled Senses. You're reducing the stats of the target and thus you're improving your damage against them. Or you can switch your helmet if you're in like multi-target over to like some action point gain with the Dark Maidens one, or some other area specific bonuses like you have back within Vault of Stars or Undermountain. Then with the Paladin Crit Aura, you can switch your Alchemist over to like the Dark Dealer Book Imp to give you, say, more solid accuracy. Then with the Tamed Velociraptor, this will give you the most damage bonuses as it allows you to gain a massive boost to your power. So first of all, you'll need to actually slot that companion in to make use of it, because you have to be part of the pack. And then you will go and switch your alchemist to like the golden cat, unless you have, say, Flapjack, Portobello, Tutor in your team, which will give you that combat advantage. And then you can switch your magma weapons and your red dwarf ring, which all mainly provide you just with power. And that way you can go to damage improving weapons like Celerum, Weaver, Void Touched, and then your ring as well. You can switch over to like the Sapphire for encounter power damage. It's a general damage boost, which also then completes the set with the Abyssal Loop rings, giving you a further damage boost. And other than that, there's plenty of damage specific rings that are like 10% against beholders, 10% against dragons, 10% against undead, 10% against constructs. Make sure to have those at hand when you want to switch, and that can be very useful when you have the Tamed Raptor to easily make the most of those. And that is group optimization and the entirety of this build. Fairly versatile. You get all the 90% without anything of a team, and then you can switch some things in order to adapt and improve your damage further. Hopefully this helps. Again, for Module 29, a little bit orientated towards fire themed, just with these boots and this shirt. There's nothing really more you can do to make the most of fire themed maps, but it's very easy to switch off using those, as I describe here, in order to make the most of any content then. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Thanks for watching, with a special thank you to all of these channel members for your extra support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now. And yes, just in case you're wondering, this is the appearance items I'm using.